why should we follow Islam? Uh, there's a concept of truth seeker. Shouldn't we first research all other religions, then make a decision? What's how do we know that Islam is the right religion?
Right. I'll answer the second question first so that we can start off. So, you see, when we are born, we inherit something from our society, from our parents, and that is the way that we should start our life. It is much the same as you do in science or any other subject. You start off with the beliefs of your uh, current understanding regarding which your parents might have given you, which the society might have given you, and then you start questioning them. And if you're not satisfied, then of course you change that particular or you critically evaluate that concept. So if you start ab initio, which means that you start researching all the concepts first of all, and then pick and choose the right one, that would be a little impractical and also quite impossible, because then you will have a lot of things in your plate. So the best thing is to start off with what you have. You're at a particular place in history, you're at a particular place in a country, you have certain beliefs which of course are inherited by you from your parents. So you just start examining them. And the way to examine them is not to question them all the time, but whenever a question comes to your mind regarding a certain practice, for example, why should we why should we consume pork? Or why is it that we are asked to pray 5 times a day? So if the question comes to your mind, either yourself or someone else poses that question to you, it is then that you start researching in that concept. So in that way, slowly and surely, wherever there is a need to revise and revisit, you'll be able to go forward in life. And this is precisely what we call as critical thinking. So critical thinking basically is to evaluate existing concepts and then one by one refresh or revisit them. And this is like a lifelong process. It's not that it's going to end, because critical thinking is something that makes you go forward and forward in life. And as I just said, the style is exactly the same. The approach is exactly the same as in any other subject in which you start off. For example, if I was born in the age of Newton, I will start off studying the universe according to the laws of Newton. And if I'm not satisfied, if I have questions, I'll start researching. And then, of course, those questions might lead to a new theory. So this quest is the same everywhere. So this was the second part of your question. And as far as the first part is concerned, that why is Islam relevant, or maybe why Islam the religion that we need to follow today? Well, the answer to this question is that if I make myself to be a neutral person, let me just pose myself to be a seeker of the truth, and I am neither a Christian nor a Muslim nor a Jew at the moment, and I would like to know that which way should I go. So you see, what I'll do is that I'll try to find out that there is one voice in this world which keeps on saying that we have the final and the preserved message of God. And I don't find any such voice contesting it. So I don't find the Jews or the Christians telling me that we have the final version of God's religion. And if they do say this, if they do claim that they have, so we can ask this question: that where is it? Where are the original books or the original scriptures? I mean, we don't have the Torah in the original preserved form. We don't have the Injil. So we find only one group, and I'm standing at the moment outside of that group. And the Muslims claim that they have the final book of God with them. It is preserved in its original language. So my first inclination as a neutral observer and a neutral seeker of the truth would be that, well, amongst these three or four or five claimants, there is just one person or one group saying that they have the original final version of God's religion. So even now, I'll not, I mean, start believing them. So my take would be that I will now pay heed to what they say, because this is an important thing, that I would like to reach God, and reaching God requires that we know, or I know, what His message is. And then suddenly someone claims that they have the final message. So my next step would be that I will examine this claim. I will examine this claim and see that if they are telling the truth. I mean, claim something is not sufficient. There has to be proof as well. So, as a neutral observer, my next step would be that if I start researching on the history of the Quran and see how it has been transmitted and how it has been preserved, and if I get satisfied, which for the moment at least I am, I mean, you can also conduct your own journey, then I would say that as long as someone else makes a different claim and makes me focus on that claim and then start reevaluating that claim, I am satisfied that for the moment, the last message of God or the final message of God is with me. It is preserved. And so, therefore, I'm going to follow it because I know for sure, or at least relatively, I'm quite sure that this is God's point of view and it has been preserved. And I would have no bias. If the same claim would have been made, for example, by the Jews and it was a correct claim, or by the Christians, or by any other faith, and I would have found it to be correct, I would have gone their way. So it's a question of just boiling down to the fact that the final version of God's religion in its original form is in the form of the Quran, and which, of course, the Muslims have. And the second important thing is that it does not actually nullify other religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, because the other thing that we know from the Quran is that all the prophets of God, they brought the same religion, and all their books spoke of the same religion. So now what I'll do is that I will study all other religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, and see how much they are in conformity with the Quran. And I'll follow that part as well, because that's just like saying that God had spoken earlier, and the way he's spoken now, it's in conformity with what he did in the past. So the second step I would take is that I will, of course, study Islam, or let's say the final version of Islam, but I will not discard the previous versions because, as I said, the only deficiency they have is that they are not preserved in their original language. Otherwise, we do have their translations. So I can match those translations on the basis of the guidance that I have in the Quran. So whatever I find in conformity with the Quran, I will go along with it, and this will make my vision broad as well. This will connect me to my brethren. I'm sure you're living in a multicultural society. You have Jews and Christians maybe around you, even if they are non-believing or non-practicing, I would say. But still, I mean, you can connect to some of them by telling them that, well, we are like brothers and sisters of the Abrahamic faith. And the reason that I, at the moment, believe that Islam is the final religion is because it is preserved in the Quran. The third thing I'd like to point out here is that the Quran also tells us that Islam was the name of all the religions that were revealed by God. So even Moses, when he was sent with the Torah, he taught Islam. And Injil, which was brought down by or revealed to Jesus, he also taught Islam. So the name of this religion was always Islam. It was much later that the Islam revealed to Moses came to be known as Judaism, or the Islam revealed to Jesus came to be known as Christianity. So this whole paradigm, if you're able to understand it, you will also feel that you are connected to your Abrahamic cousins, I would say, and at the same time, you are more logical because you are not believing merely because your parents said that you should believe in Islam. You are believing because you think that the claim which is made by Muslims that they have God's final religion with them is at the moment true to you unless something challenges it and you go further in your research. So that is how I would advise you as well, that if you are believing in in Islam to be the last religion and you think that you should follow Islam, then the reason is that it is the final version of God that we have with us in exactly the same format as it was revealed. And if I may add one more thing, that you see the importance and relevance of religion or Islam, I would say, is that it informs us about certain things that we may not be able to know. For example, how to have a relationship with God. I mean, that relationship, of course, is in the form of worship. Then how to worship God? We don't know about that, so we will have to revert to divine revelation to guide us. So you see, once we are able to know that this is the final version, the next step is the relevance of that final version, which means that there are certain things that we need to know and to perform certain functions. So in those functions, although our intellect and our conscience have a great role to play, and they do guide us, but they fall short in certain instances. So that is the part in which divine revelation comes and guides us. And as a result, we know certain things. And then similarly, not only does it guide us, it has another role, and that is it reminds us of the truths that we already have in ourselves. For example, we know that justice and kindness and compassion, these are good values, but we tend to forget them. So what the Quran or the divine revelation does is that when you keep reading it, it keeps on reminding you that look at the good inside of you. You follow the good, follow your conscience, follow righteousness. So you see, once you're able to secure which religion deserves to be called God's religion, the next step is that why should I follow that religion? So the reason of that why is that uh, it is our dire need to remain connected to God, and it's our dire need to do good deeds, and that is how the Quran fulfills that function.